Wherever you are, it is the top of the hour, and we are coming on the air with new details about President Biden's surprise visit to Ukraine, how he got to Kyiv, and why the White House told the Kremlin ahead of time. And we're looking ahead to his key speech tomorrow in Poland with live reaction from Moscow. Plus, the only hospital left in Turkey's Hatay region is now closed after a second massive earthquake hit over the last few hours. We'll have the latest on the area already devastated by destruction. And we just got our hands on new court documents in New Mexico, why the district attorney there is reducing the charges against Alec Baldwin after facing pressure from his attorneys. Plus, could a computer determine whether you keep your job? How algorithms, AI, are playing a key role for companies thinking about layoffs. And in tonight's original, are sleepovers a thing of the past? Oh, please, yes. That question is sparking a hashtag that's trending big time. It's getting some big reactions from parents who say, oh, please, get rid of them. Good riddance. We'll explain this online debate coming up later in the show. Good day, I'm Tom Costello. I'm in for Hallie, and President Biden is now back in Poland, preparing for what's expected to be a powerful speech tomorrow in support of Ukraine. That's after today's surprise and rather risky visit to Kyiv. You see the president visiting with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky on President's Day, no less. This trip was so secretive, the public didn't even know he was going until he got there. One source says he took a 10-hour train ride to get to Kyiv. And there you can hear the air raid sirens. Just how dangerous was it as he was on the ground? These two leaders walked in broad daylight through Kyiv. It's the first time in modern history that an American president has gone into a war zone that did not have a U.S. military presence. President Biden came bearing gifts, another $460 million in aid. Most of that is for military help, missiles, radar, anti-armor, some of it also to protect Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And like that has been huge for Ukraine, just look at how the war has changed since the president last visited nearby Poland in March of 22. All right, take a look at all of the red. Russia was advancing in from all sides, the north, the far east, even up through Crimea. And now, today, it's changed dramatically. Russia is only claiming parts of the south and the east. This is where they're limited to right here, the red here and the red down here. Ukraine has pushed back dramatically all across the front. Mr. Biden says it is proof that what the West is doing is working and that Ukraine right now is winning.
1 year later, Kyiv stands and Ukraine stands. Democracy stands. The Americans stand with you, and the world stands with you.
Okay, we are going in depth on this. NBC's Josh Letterman is in Warsaw, Poland right now. Josh, the president talked about making this trip for months. It sounds like it really heated up after Zelensky's trip to Washington recently. Can you pull back the curtain, how this all came together?
Tom, all presidential trips to active war zones are risky affairs shrouded in secrecy, but this trip was on a whole different level because, as you point out, it's not like the U.S. has tens of thousands of troops in Ukraine like it did in Afghanistan and Iraq. They don't have military bases there where they can kind of control the environment that the president is in. And so President Biden, we are told, slipped out of Washington under cover of night at about 4:15 in the morning with only 2 journalists with him. Their phones were taken away by U.S. officials for about 24 hours, ostensibly so nobody could track those devices. The president taking that 10-hour trip by train from Poland to the capital of Kyiv. And the White House says that they actually notified the Russian government a few hours before President Biden went to Kyiv just to make sure that the Russians wouldn't do anything that could potentially put President Biden in danger. He's now safely out of the country. He is now back in Poland, where we expect to see him here in Warsaw tomorrow, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's worth underscoring that should the president have in any way been injured in any sort of Russian activity, that would have dramatically escalated the situation between the U.S. and Russia. So you understand why Washington let Moscow know he was coming. Listen, polls show that U.S. support for helping Ukraine right now may be dropping. Now less than half of Americans want the U.S. to send weapons, down from 60% in May of last year. What are you hearing from the Ukrainians, and is this really why Biden went, to shore up support, American support, as well as European support?
We're hearing from the Ukrainians gratitude and relief. And one of the things I find most interesting about reporting on the ground in Ukraine, Tom, is how different it is than being a journalist in the U.S., where oftentimes we show up to things and people don't really want the media there, especially when you're covering politics. In Ukraine, they are so happy to see that there is ongoing attention about this, that Americans back at home are still hearing about their plight because they know just how critical it is that they maintain that support of the American public so that they'll maintain the support of the U.S. government and its military. And I want you to hear from Sergei, who was in Ukraine, who our colleague Aaron McLaughlin spoke to today in Kyiv. Here's what he had to say.
We feel that world support us and never forget about our problems and this war.
And that clearly was the message President Biden wanted to send to the Ukrainian people, not to give up hope today, Tom, but also he was sending a message to other audiences, including to Americans back at home, to all these other nations whose support Ukraine also needs, and, of course, a message to President Putin that the U.S. is not going to be going anywhere.
We've got breaking news out of Turkey. At least 3 people are dead, and we're just now getting video of the moment a second massive earthquake hit today, I should say, very close to the last one. It struck Turkey, sending people running during an on-air interview. So watch this.
İşi yapabilmek için.
Sevgili seyirciler, canlı yayında yine deprem oldu. Çok şiddetli sallanıyor Hatay.
This was a 6.3 magnitude, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. And you see from the map, it's in that same region, the Hatay region, just 10 miles from the epicenter of the tremor from 2 weeks ago that killed more than 46,000 people across Turkey. 46,000. This powerful video was from the region's airport. You can see, really, and feel the sense of panic there. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald is tracking all of this, the latest earthquake from London. So, Megan, our contact on the ground says the last remaining hospital in that region is now being evacuated. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Tom, you're absolutely right. I mean, you think about it, this is a hospital that was tasked with treating some of the thousands of people injured in the earthquake that struck, or the 2 earthquakes, I should say, that struck just 2 weeks ago. And as you said, now it's having to evacuate. Now, at this hour, it's unclear as to where those patients will be taken. But the fact that it had to evacuate in and of itself is of grave concern here. Now, the silver lining is that the building itself has not collapsed. But this was really significant. I want to get to that video again. I mean, we're seeing some dash cam video that's coming in, surveillance camera video that's coming in, really showing the scene here of the horror and terror that just permeated throughout this region yet again. Big plumes of smoke going up into the sky from collapsed buildings, people running for their lives. Right now, we know the death toll stands at 3 at the moment, with hundreds of others injured, Tom.
But that's on top of the 46,000 people. Yeah. It's just a staggering number that have already been killed from the first earthquake, and crews are still in the process of rescue and recovery from that earthquake, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, which is now obviously made even worse and complicated by the buildings that just collapsed. You know, it was a search and rescue mission. Right now, majority of it has turned into a recovery mission. Unfortunately, they have not recently found people that have still been alive. And that's the most devastating part of all of this. We know that that death toll will continue to climb as these crews continue to recover these lifeless bodies trapped beneath the rubble. Tom.
Yeah, it's just awful. Megan, thank you. Megan Fitzgerald, thank you very much. A win today for Alec Baldwin after New Mexico prosecutors decided to downgrade felony charges against Baldwin over that deadly shooting on the set of the movie Rust back in 2021. Remember, last month, the Santa Fe DA announced Baldwin and the film's armorer would face 2 charges of involuntary manslaughter, which included, the possibility of a 5-year sentence for a firearms enhancement penalty. Now, it's something Baldwin's lawyers have been trying to fight. They said the actor was incorrectly charged under a version of a New Mexico law that passed months after the shooting. We reached out to Baldwin's reps for comment, but no word back. NBC legal analyst Danny Savalos joins me now. All right, Danny, the New Mexico DA's office made this statement. They say basically the reason they moved forward with this was because their focus is on justice, not giving, listen to this, not giving, quote, big city attorneys more billable hours. Talk to us about the thinking here on the prosecutor's side.
I can't talk to their thinking because, frankly, that statement makes no sense. Number one, there's so many problems with it. Number one, that the prosecution would drop a charge because the defense is litigious. I've never met a prosecutor who just folds and drops an entire charge because they don't want to litigate it. This is litigation. You drop charges as a prosecutor when you no longer believe you can prove them. And this especially seems like the case where the prosecutors may have charged Baldwin with a statute that didn't apply at the time of the shooting. So while it's technically true that they downgraded these charges, it appears that from the defense's motion, this was a foregone conclusion. If they didn't drop them, the court would have thrown them out if they didn't apply. And just as a final thought, if they'd been investigating this case for a year, I have to wonder, didn't somebody on the prosecution team look up to see whether the charge that they, this enhancement, this mandatory minimum, actually even applied at the time before they charged it?
Yeah, so the lesser charge, I guess this could mean a lesser sentence, right, for both Baldwin and the armorer in this case. I've been wondering all along, just as a layperson watching from afar, did the prosecutors overreach originally in their charges?
I try to be neutral about these things, but in my opinion, yes, they always overreached. And when you do that, when you overcharge, this is one of the risks. A defense team that is on the ball will scrutinize those charges, and just as they've done here, they pointed out what should have been a very obvious mistake. If it's true that the prosecutors charged Baldwin with a statute that didn't exist at the time that he fired or didn't fire the gun at the time of the shooting. So this is really problematic for me. And that statement, just as a final thought on that statement, talking about Baldwin's big city lawyers and their billable hours, that's not a good look for the state. This is the state of New Mexico. They're not the underdog.
Yeah, and what it sounds like what they're saying is Baldwin's attorneys have all the time and all the money and all the resources. We, the state, don't. And, oh, by the way, we charged him with something that he can't be charged with. So that's not a good start to this whole trial, I wouldn't think.
No, I agree, and that is why the statement, I have to imagine that the spokesperson may be getting a talking to, because that's just not a typical DA statement from their press department. It just reeks of, frankly, lack of self-esteem that they're worried about Baldwin's big city lawyers. And really, it's another piece of evidence that they're targeting, supposedly, a Hollywood big shot in their mind.
Danny, thank you. We always appreciate the insight. Danny Savalos. All right, a suspect is under arrest today in connection with the murder of a Catholic bishop in Los Angeles. So here's what we know right now. Police say 69-year-old Bishop David O'Connell was found shot to death at his home on Saturday. He died from a single gunshot wound. Investigators are now labeling that death as a homicide. So we want to get more now from NBC's Nyala Charles. She's live in Los Angeles. What do investigators think happened here? Do we have a sense yet?
Well, Tom, deputies are calling this death suspicious, and they're saying it's a targeted attack. The bishop was found shot to death at his Los Angeles home Saturday afternoon in a quiet community with a cold sack. Neighbors tell us that he missed a church event that day, and a deacon came to check on him at his home and instead found him dead. We do know that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has a suspect under arrest, but they haven't released more details so far other than that. But there is a press conference coming up within the hour where we expect to learn more about the suspect, the arrest, and the circumstances around the bishop's death. Tom?
And we are told that Bishop Davis, he was known, reportedly helped kind of smooth over the tensions between the residents and law enforcement. What kind of an impact is his death having on this community?
Well, the manner in which he died is really difficult for the community to digest because he was known as a healer within the community. He served as a priest and bishop in Los Angeles for more than 45 years, primarily serving in the South Los Angeles community, which is a diverse community. He worked with gang members. He spoke to immigrants. He worked with officers and the poor to try to bridge the gap between these communities and bring healing about in that community. We even spoke to an attorney who says she inspired him to only take on pro bono immigration work and leaving that for-profit business behind. But she says that's who he was. He was kind and he inspired others to do good just as he was doing good within the community as well. We know he created an immigration task force, which he helped many unaccompanied minors through difficult times. This attorney telling us he's the type of person when they were low on rent and they couldn't afford to pay, he took money out of his own personal pocket to help him. She described him as someone who always left his doors open for those in need. Tom?
Oh, boy. All right. Nyla Charles, thank you very much. A major winter storm is rolling in today, putting 17 million people from California to Minnesota under winter alerts. It's bringing strong winds and heavy snow to the Northwest and the Rockies today before it then moves east. Now, this storm is expected to impact travel, even ski resorts. The winds can bring down trees, causing power outages. While this hits one part of the country, the other is seeing a whole different story. It's unusually warm from Texas to Maine. We're talking 10 to 20 degrees, I should say, above the average, and it's only going to get warmer as the week goes on. So let's bring in NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, we're going to hit nearly 80 degrees here in Washington on Thursday, and I walked outside for lunch. And the trees are blooming.
It's crazy.
Mid-February, the trees are blooming. Now, Katy Perry said it best. You're hot, then you're cold. So what's going on with the weather's mixed message right now?
It's going to look like one of those wild, like maybe mid to late March weeks where we have like record highs some areas and then record cold and then snow and wind. So let's get to the worst of it. And that's going to be the winter part of this. I think a lot of us can deal with spring-like conditions. But in the West, this isn't going to be your average winter storm. Even in California, they could get snow down to 1,000 feet levels, so 1,000-foot levels. And those are areas that don't get a lot of snow, so they're worried about power outages there. You know, we are now up to 20 million. This just looks like a kid took a crayon to my map with warnings. We got blizzard warnings in Wyoming and portions of Montana. All of the high elevations of the West are going to experience significant weather, either wind or snow, in some cases both with this storm. 1 to 3 feet in areas of the Wasatch Range. The Sierra is going to get more snow. Great for them, for California's water. And then we're going to take the storm through the middle of the country, and it looks like Minnesota and Wisconsin, this could be a huge event for you, maybe historical event. It's not often the Twin Cities have a chance. This is the forecast from the National Weather Service, 18 to 22 inches of snow with gusts up to 45 miles per hour. So we're talking near blizzard with almost 2 feet of snow on the ground. So that'll be a lot of blowing and drifting of the snow. And the winds are going to be crazy. Vegas tomorrow night could see 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So we could talk about power outages with that alone. And so here's the forecast winds. Right now about 65 in Vegas. You notice out in the plains, 50s, 40s. So that's going to be an issue, too. And then, Tom, you mentioned it. These temperatures are just, everyone's kind of shaking their heads like this just isn't normal. This huge ridge of high pressure, 10 to 30 degrees above normal. Areas of Florida are going to be near 90 degrees already. You know, Florida's hot enough in the summer. We easily could see about 90 different climate stations setting record highs. At Nashville at 80, Charlotte 77 tomorrow. Montgomery, Alabama could be mid-80s. I mean, who wants to turn their air conditioning on in the middle of February? And then even on Wednesday, it stays very unusually warm. As you said, it won't last for a lot of these areas, cooling off towards the end of the week. But, I mean, this has been a wildly warm winter for so many places.
We have not had a single drop of snow stick to the ground here, the cement, and they're talking about a month early or several weeks early for cherry blossoms. So it is definitely unusual in D.C. All right, Bill. Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon. All righty. All right, just moments ago, we learned the EPA administrator will be back in East Palestine, Ohio tomorrow, holding a press conference with local and state officials. That after residents today in the area started scheduling appointments at a pop-up clinic for any health concerns. after those toxic chemicals were released from that derailed train. The clinic officially opens its doors tomorrow. Meanwhile, the freight train operator, Norfolk Southern, is facing more and more criticism on how it's handling the disaster. The EPA continues to report the air and the water are safe, but the townspeople, understandably, are very concerned. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has written a letter to the CEO of the company to, quote, emphasize the urgent need for Norfolk Southern to demonstrate unequivocal support for the people of East Palestine and the surrounding areas. The Ohio Attorney General also said in a letter that his office is considering a lawsuit. We want to bring in NBC's George Solis, who's in front of the clinic in East Palestine. He's been on the story now for days. George, what's the reaction in the community now to this surprise visit from the Norfolk Southern CEO? He doesn't seem to really want to take many questions from the people.
That's right, Tom. A lot of residents frustrated that this was an unannounced visit, that he came in, talked to a few local leaders, a few firefighters, even some of his own employees that live here in the town. What they really wanted was a town hall type of meeting where they could ask him the tough questions, ask them what else the company is going to be doing for them, and raise some of those health concerns that a lot of people in this community say have been a big concern for them since this derailment occurred. Now, mind you, at this point, there's been no documented evidence that anything at the derailed site has led to anyone being sick, but a lot of people here telling me they've experienced lightheadedness, they've experienced runny noses and watery eyes, things that really can't be explained. So a lot of people telling me, look, we may check out this clinic, we may see what the experts are saying, but our own doctors don't know what to test for. So they really want some more transparency to see what, if anything, can really be done about the air and water quality, which, again, as you mentioned, experts say is fine, but residents not so sure that's true. Tom?
In the letter from Secretary Buttigieg to the Norfolk CEO, Buttigieg writes about calls for safety reform that the rail industry pushes back against them. His message is, this is what it says. This must change, he says. It's all well and good to write a letter, but the Obama administration enacted tough freight rules many years ago, only to have them gutted during the Trump years. So where does this go from here now? The heat clearly is on.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. I think the idea here is to put some pressure on Norfolk Southern and other rail companies to come together, to sit together at a table, maybe discuss tougher regulations to hopefully prevent another disaster like this from occurring. Tom?
All right, George, thank you. Nice job, nice work there, and stay safe. George Solis. Right now, as we are on the air, students at Michigan State University are winding down their first day back on campus at MSU after that horrific mass shooting that took the lives of 3 of their classmates and wounded 5 others, 2 of whom remain in critical condition. All classes are back on schedule, even those that were most closely impacted by the attack. For some on campus, rightfully, it's really a lot to take in. NBC's Jesse Kirsch talked to students about this day back. Take a listen.
The energy is definitely different. The best way to really get back to normal is just to kind of embrace the discomfort right now. Everybody's shaken up.
We're moving forward. We're not living in fear. We're not just bound by the actions of some evil person. We are one, all the community.
And you see big crowds today rallying outside the Michigan State Capitol, demonstrating in support of gun legislation. Local leaders and speakers from March for Our Lives, meanwhile, encourage students to skip class and take a stand earlier today.
If I can put on a Spartan shirt, we can be united in this state, and we must be united.
NBC's Jesse Kirsch is in East Lansing, Michigan. Jesse, give us a sense of what you're seeing and hearing on campus. What's the feeling right there?
Yeah, well, Tom, I think you just laid it out there. This is not a normal first day of class. You have demonstrations not far from here at the state capitol. You have signs stuck in the ground throughout campus trying to support people, give signs of encouragement, but also acknowledging it's okay to not feel comfortable right now. And there are chalk messages on the ground. There are flowers. And right behind me is Berkey Hall, one of the 2 locations that police say a gunman opened fire in last Monday night. This building, as well as the student union, are now shuttered for the rest of the semester, and so they've become memorials. So if someone's walking down the street behind me here to go to class, yet another reminder of what unfolded here That has led to mixed emotions, some people feeling varying degrees of trepidation about going back to class. And there was no specific mandate from the university that professors offer a virtual option. So unless a professor offered that, students would be expected to be in person for that. And we talked with some students throughout the weekend as well as today about this. Here's some of what one shared with us.
To be honest, we haven't made a lot of changes. We feel that we have a robust response in place, a robust system in place, that we are adequately prepared to respond to any needs on this campus.
And to clarify, sorry, that's the University Police Department. We asked them about safety measures on campus here because while they're bringing all these students back, as you just heard there, they haven't made any substantial specific changes to the safety plan, though there is a more visible police presence on campus this week, we're told. They're confident in their plan and just trying to be as supportive as they can as students come back to class here, Tom.
Jesse, I don't want to blindside you, and maybe you don't know yet. Any talk at all about whether they're going to gut the student room or the classroom where the shooting occurred? Any talk at all about whether they might take down part of that building, or is that premature?
Yeah, Tom, we sat down exclusively with the president of the university earlier, her first one-on-one sit-down interview with a national outlet since this mass shooting, and we asked her about this, the interim president, Dr. Teresa Woodruff, and she said that is something that they're in the process of going through, essentially, Tom, something that is going to be looked at and discussed. And so they essentially said, we're aware of it, we're thinking about it, but they don't have an answer on that yet. Obviously, trying to think about immediate operations, you can imagine, would be a more pressing issue to get people back in the classrooms today.
Absolutely. Jesse, thank you. Jesse Kirsch on the ground there at MSU. Coming up, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis might be testing out a run for 2024. What he's doing in some Democratic cities today, that's next. Plus, Brittany Griner reportedly making her return to the basketball court less than 3 months after being freed from a Russian prison. We've got more coming up and 5 things you got to know. Stay with us. Facebook and Instagram could soon charge you if you want special status. That got your attention, right? We will explain it all coming up in the 5 things. But first up from us, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis today in a suburb of Chicago, speaking to a local police union as part of a tour of big Democratic cities. It comes as DeSantis is considering a possible run for president in 2024. He's making stops in areas outside of New York, Chicago, and Philly, cities he says are too soft on crime. It's a problem he blames on Democrats. Here's what he said to a group of law enforcement officers in New York's Staten Island earlier today.
The reason why you have what you have in some of these other jurisdictions is because they're putting woke ideology ahead of your safety as New Yorkers or as people from Illinois or wherever you have this type of policy taking place.
NBC's Shaq Brewster is with us now from Chicago. So, Shaq, why is he choosing to visit these cities, Democrat-run cities, where he's really not popular? We should make the point Staten Island is home to an awful lot of police and firefighters in New York. But why is he doing this?
That's right, and many of these trips are on the outskirts of the city, but still getting a lot of attention within those individual cities. Tom, officially you have his team telling me that this is about recruiting. You hear some of that message that we just played from Governor DeSantis there, but he's saying essentially that to members of law enforcement, your cities, your political leadership is not backing you. Come to Florida, where we have incentives for you, where we back the blue, in his words. So they say it's about recruiting and also setting that contrast, the policies that he put in place in Florida compared to the policies that were put in place in many of these cities. But either way, it's getting a lot of attention, and it's definitely getting a lot of pushback in these different areas locally.
Yeah, a lot of departments nationwide are struggling to hold on to cops and firefighters. So that's interesting that he's there on a recruiting trip. And, oh, by the way, I'm running for president. But the timing is interesting for Illinois, right? There's a heated fight for mayor in Chicago, and the visits made the governor and other officials there take notice, saying, quote, here's what the governor said, DeSantis's dangerous and hateful agenda has no place in Illinois. So why is the governor there, Pritzker, making sure his voice is heard here?
Well, you've seen a pattern from Pritzker in terms of, Ron DeSantis gets a lot of attention. He's in this 2024 conversation. Well, you're also hearing Pritzker come back and kind of be a counterweight to what you're seeing from DeSantis. I want you to look at the comparison of these two figures. You have Pritzker. He welcomed out-of-state abortion patients. The legislature passed laws strengthening that protection. He signed laws banning assault weapons, high-capacity magazines. He signed a law requiring LGBTQ plus and Asian American studies. Where you have Ron DeSantis, he placed restrictions on abortion. That's something that he wants the legislature to reconsider in this upcoming session. He eased restrictions on gun ownership and rejected AP African American Studies courses. So you have Ron DeSantis really taking that conservative path, saying this is what you can have in a Republican state, and you have Pritzker saying, hey, this is what we can do in a Democratic state.
So polar opposites on these issues. And let's see, declared candidates and 2024 hopefuls have been on the move, right? DeSantis showing up in blue cities, Nikki Haley in Iowa tonight, Florida Senator Tim Scott and former VP Pence also in Iowa. Is this all about getting their faces out there now since they're competing against Trump, who soaks up all the attention?
It's a ramp up to 2024. I know viewers are probably cringing when I say that, but that's what this is all about. You have some of the declared candidates, but then those who are considering runs. Ron DeSantis was asked about that earlier today. He said that decision's not coming until later in the spring, but it's all part of that process, Tom.
Shaquille Brewster, who's in the heartland and has job security for at least the next few years. Shaq, thanks very much. All right, let's get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, at least 36 people have been killed in Brazil after heavy rains brought flooding and landslides to Sao Paulo. The region received almost 2 feet of rain in a single day. That's among the most ever recorded in Brazil. Rescue crews are still searching for survivors. Number 2, dozens of countries are urging the International Olympic Committee to consider banning Russian and Belarusian athletes from competing in next year's games in Paris. They say the IOC needs a workable plan for the athletes to compete under a neutral flag, meaning they would not represent their homelands. So far, there's been no mention of a potential boycott. Number 3, United Airlines is changing its family seating policy. The airline says it will open up more spots on its flights so parents can book seats next to their young children without paying an extra fee. It's a type of charge that's drawn scrutiny from the Biden administration and also from some lawmakers. Number 4, Meta. Listen up. The parent company at Facebook and Instagram is launching a new subscription service that would let users pay to be verified, similar to Twitter's Blue subscription. Meta Verified is going to cost between $12 and $15 a month. It comes with some other features. Think extra protection from impersonation accounts. The company says it'll start rolling out in Australia and New Zealand this week, with more countries coming online soon. Number 5, Brittany Griner is returning to the WNBA after spending nearly 10 months detained in that Russian prison. She's reportedly re-signed a 1-year contract with the Phoenix Mercury. Griner last played for the team in 2021 when she helped them get to the WNBA Finals. 45 after the hour. You know, we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence on the show. The viral ChatGPT bot and Microsoft's Bing AI, they're creating some interesting conversations with users. Now, artificial intelligence seems to be making its way into someplace else, tech layoffs. Over 108,000 people have already lost their jobs, their tech jobs this year, and AI may be playing a new, bigger role in deciding who to cut, who to keep. 98% of HR leaders say in a new survey say that algorithms help them make decisions on how to reduce the labor costs, what jobs to cut. But Google, for its part, tells the Washington Post there was, quote, no algorithm involved in its job cuts. Companies also say they lean on tech for finding candidates, collecting data on how much an employee might get, paid rather, and then also how well they're performing. So Barron's Wall Street reporter Carlton English decided to join us on this afternoon. Hi, Carlton. Layoffs are usually difficult decisions. One survey, I understand, finds that about half of HR managers think AI can help. Do we think AI will be more involved in employment decisions going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. It will be more involved. And I think using AI is certainly fine if it's a tool used to make decisions. So especially when you're looking at these large companies like the Googles and things like that, even though Google said it did not use algorithms in its decision making this round, when you are looking to lay off thousands of workers, you need some sort of sorting mechanism. And AI can do that, looking at, teams that aren't super productive, looking at maybe higher wage earners that you're not quite getting everything out of that salary, for instance.
Yeah, but you miss the nuance, don't you? You don't know why that team wasn't productive. It may not be this guy's fault, but that person's fault. AI is dominating so many conversations these days. So what other changes do you think could it bring to companies and their workers?
Yeah, and I think you touched on that exactly, where you might look at a team that's unproductive and you may have 5 fantastic workers, but one bad manager. And AI can't really figure that part out. So as long as it's just being used as a tool, just a way to organize information, I think it is fine. But what we need to have is that human aspect that looks at the data, asks why, and then makes better decisions. So it's AI and the human factor working together. It's not AI coming for our jobs as we all feared, and really coming for our jobs in a way that we did not expect that it would be.
Hal is not coming for my job, at least not yet, right?
Exactly. Let's hope.
All right. Carlton, thank you. Carlton English.
Thank you.
NBC covers hundreds of stories every single day, and because you could not possibly read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you and for me. This is what they tell us is going down in the regions. It's a segment we like to call The Local. From our Southern Bureau, 1 person has died, 4 others injured in a shooting at a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans last night. Police there say 1 person has been detained. 2 guns were recovered at the scene. It's not clear what led to the violence. Mardi Gras is officially tomorrow. Out of our Northwest Bureau, make that Northeast Bureau, 4 people were hurt in a mall in New Jersey over the weekend after a decorative helicopter fell from a ceiling at a water park and then into a pool. No word on why that helicopter fell. State troopers say the injuries were not serious. One person was taken to a local hospital. Also from our Southern Bureau, firefighters in Charlotte, North Carolina, saved 1 couple's big day. They used a rig, look at this, to rescue 6 people trapped in a hotel elevator. 5 of them were in the wedding party, and the other one was the bride. No one was injured. The fire department says it's wishing the newlyweds a long, happy life. Thank you, guys. Okay, now we want to bring you today's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. Tonight, a thing that's probably popping up in the group chat for you on some platform somewhere. Parents out there talking about sleepovers. Maybe somebody you know had one just this past weekend. A debate about this childhood rite of passage is swirling, with some parents saying they are skipping the sleepovers altogether out of safety concerns. In fact, there are over 17 million views for the hashtag No Sleepovers on TikTok alone. Zincle Isimwa has the story.
There is one thing Larry Mittenall would never do as a parent.
I would never, ever, ever, ever let them do a sleepover.
The child and adolescent psychologist making the case against youth sleepovers, citing safety risks.
Risks such as, abuse, and that could be physical, emotional, or sexual. Exposures, right, to certain things like illicit images or substance use or just experimentation and other forms that parents might not really be kind of comfortable with.
His opinion striking a chord with parents and caretakers in the comments online.
We do not let our kids sleep over their friends' homes.
And off.
The unpredictability. I don't know who mom and dad have coming in and out.
Like Utah resident Melissa Gold, a mother of 2 and survivor of childhood abuse. She does not let her child sleep over.
I don't know what's on their phones. I don't know regarding their social media rules. And for them to miss a night's sleep, a solid night's sleep, can throw us off for a week.
Families also cite concerns over cultural differences.
What's the makeup of your current community?
So we are in Texas, and even though we are in a major city, it's still, I would say, majority white.
Bisma Parvez is Southeast Asian, Muslim, and a mother of 2 kids.
So there is a lot of modesty rules that come in with how you interact with the opposite gender. And it's not to say your cultural norms are better or worse. It's just that I'm not comfortable with it.
People of color less likely than white people to allow a sleepover, according to a recent poll by YouGov. Still, some experts like Dr. Mary Alvord say sleepovers are key to building resilience, independence, and open-mindedness.
You can go to someone's house and
Maybe their breakfast routine is something completely different, and there are different foods, or maybe even a different language. And you learn to be mentally flexible.
With some parents still defending their pro-sleepover positions online.
Millions of children all around the world have sleepovers every single day.
Just let me know where it is and who's all going to be there, and I'm totally fine with it.
Even amid the differences, experts and parents agree child safety and independence remain high priorities, empowering kids to mature while teaching about consent and safe touch.
I try to do an approach where I explain to my kids why I'm making certain decisions. They may not fully get it, and that's okay.
Everybody gets to parent in their own way.
The sleepover remaining a modern nightmare for some parents and a sweet dream for others. Zinclea Samoa, NBC News.
Zinclea, thank you. That's a wrap for us at this hour. We're going to have more for you here tomorrow, same place, same time. Coverage, though, resumes right now on News Now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.